we are all thirsty for the Wicker guy. But Olivia Colman is far from the first woman of folklore who opted to construct herself a hunky himbo instead of waiting around for a boring old flesh guy. Wicker is based on a short story by Ursula Willis Jones, and before that, the horny storytellers of Eastern Europe and Southwest Asia told dozens of such fairy tales about artificial, custom-made husbands. Among them are husbands made of pearl and husbands made of ambergris, but in most of them, a woman, well, bakes herself a man. Sugar was quite the commodity back then, and thus made for a particularly refined sweetheart, if you will. This is my spin on the Italian versions, the Marzipan Man. The Marzipan?
Fucked up fairy tales with Liz.
Ding! Once upon a time, a lovely young woman named Beta came under a lot of pressure to get married. Her father, a merchant, pestered her, and she came up with excuse after excuse. Determined not to compromise for a man she wasn't excited about. Exhausted and exasperated, the merchant decided to get out of the house for a bit. "Tell me, Beta," he said, "is there something I can bring you back on my trip?" "Yes, there is one thing," Beta said, "and by one thing I mean this one list of many things." The merchant read it. 100 pounds of Palermo sugar, 100 pounds of almonds, 6 flasks of rose water, some musk, some amber, 40 pearls, 2 sapphires, a batch of spun gold, a modeling bowl, and a scalpel. You know, most daughters just ask for a rose or something. The merchant was used to his daughter's high standards and specific demands. So when he returned, he brought her weight in flour and nuts and then some. Beta gathered up the ingredients, waltzed right past the kitchen, and into her bedroom. That night, under the moonbeams, Beta ground the almonds into paste and mixed that with the sugar, rosewater, and perfumes. From the resulting dough, she crafted a body of bulging muscles and the face of a biblically inaccurate angel. Bright blue sapphire eyes shone from beneath thick gold-spun hair. Sanded sugar across his jaw created the perfect 5 o'clock shadow. Pearls made up his smile. Beta finished him off, hello, with some lady fingers for boy fingers and admired her work. In just 7 hours, she'd made her a man. Next, Beta turned to the best ally for a sculptor in love, the goddess Venus. Beta prayed to the love matriarch at the foot of her crumbly Casanova night after night until he breathed his first breath and blinked his first blunk and finally walked the walk and talked the talk. Hubby was happy to let Beta touch him, and after the two fooled around for a bit, Beta brought him out of the bedroom and introduced him to her father. "Daddy, meet my husband, tall, sweet, and handsome." Her father didn't know what to say. No man had walked into his daughter's bedroom, but one sure did walk out. So he congratulated the two and threw a huge party to celebrate, inviting anyone and everyone who was a someone. Among the swanky guests was a mysterious queen. The queen took one look at tall, sweet, and handsome and decided he was the only biscuit for her. Now, our Marzipan Man was a mere 1 day old. He hadn't earned his street smarts yet. All the queen had to do was say, "Walk me to my carriage," and he said, "Okay," and then she said, "Get into my carriage," and he said, "Okay," and as they drove away, she told him she was his new wife now, and he said, "Okay." Once Beta realized she hadn't seen her doughboy in a bit, she performed a thorough search of the house, including the bathroom, which means I now have to think about what exactly a cookie man excretes. When she found no trace of the man, she correctly concluded that he had been stolen. Beta put out a call for her missing husband, offering a substantial reward, but when no news came forth, she dressed up as a peasant to track down her custom-made hubby herself. She journeyed through the forest with no luck for many months. Eventually, she came to the hut, and an old woman answered the door. "Would you take in a poor pregnant woman?" Beta asked. Well, now we know one thing a cookie man excretes. The old woman listened to Beta's plight, and luckily she knew some witchy words. She taught them to the girl, assuring her they'd be of use should she have the opportunity to get her homemade husband back. "You'll find him at the Round Mountain," the witchy woman informed her. So Beta hiked in that direction. By the time Beta arrived at the Round Mountain, she was quite round in the belly herself. She had no time to waste before she gave birth to whatever a cookie man and a meat woman reproduce. So she uttered the first of the witch's enchantments. Ballerina cappuccina, it's raining man. I'm roughly paraphrasing. At her words, a shining, golden, self-driving carriage encrusted with gems appeared and drove itself around the property. When the Queen of the Round Mountain heard about it and saw it outside her window, she bargained with Beta in disguise. Beta would accept only one thing as payment: a night of passion with Tall, Sweet, and Handsome. The Queen allowed it, but she drugged the Marzipan Man so Beta couldn't take advantage of it. Yes, he's edible, but also he eats. I don't get it either. Beta ranted at her unmoving lump of a husband, monologuing the whole night long in hopes it would wake him, but it only got the Queen a noise complaint. So the next day, Beta stood outside the palace and sang the second of the witchy verses. Bobadiro crocodilo, I could drink a case of you. A golden bird with jewels for feathers appeared where there was none before, and its song was even prettier than that Joni Mitchell song. The Queen asked, how much? And Beta said, 1 night with cookie is good enough for me. So the Queen gave her another 8 hours with an opium-laced Marzipan Man. Beta ranted and raved, hoping it would rouse her hubs, but it only roused more ire from the neighbors. They were so put out, in fact, that one knocked on the door of the Round Mountain the next morning. Tall, Sweet, and Handsome answered. Hey, buddy, the neighbor said, can you shut your old lady up so I can get a good night's sleep? Huh? The caked-up himbo asked. Your wife has been screaming the whole night long for 2 days straight. You're my sweet treat of a man, she moans. How dare that woman steal you from right out of my cookie jar, she bellows. I molded your nuts out of nuts and sugar with my own 2 hands, and now she's doing the kneading? Tall, Sweet, and Handsome had learned a thing or two since he'd been kidnapped. He learned, for example, that his new wife was a lot meaner than the wife that created him. That night, he made sure he wasn't spiked with the sleepy meds. So when Beta sang, Trallero, tralala, ain't no sunshine when he's gone, he saw the Queen of the Round Mountain ask a peasant woman how much for a wardrobe full of silken gowns studded with golden seashells. He saw Beta reply, I'm a wilderness girl and it's cookie time. He was fully awake when Beta was shown to his room and listened as she poured out her heart and soul for a 3rd time, loud enough that the neighbor banged on the wall and cried, Hey, I'm sleeping here! Tall, Sweet, and Handsome shushed Beta with a lady finger to her lips. I remember, he said. So the 2 lovers snatched up the golden seashell gowns and grabbed the bejeweled bird and packed them into the self-driving carriage and drove away from the Round Mountain just in time for Beta to give birth to a beautiful baby boy. Did you forget she was pregnant? 'Cause I sure did. As for the Queen of the Round Mountain, she was so angry, she tore out all of her hair strand by strand until she was dead. Wow. Hey, it's no Skarsgård made of straw, but it's a hell of a fairy tale. Next time, I'll share a story about a woman who falls in love with a different sort of wooden man. Until then, I recommend that you amuse yourself with a copy of Fucked Up Fairy Tales, a collection of similarly wacky folklore retold by yours truly, and available at your favorite place to obtain books. Am I saying that one right? Do you know?
What?
Bobadiro crocodilo?
These are
Italian brain rot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that's why I shot you the look. I was like, are you serious?
This fairy tale is Italian brain rot.